A very good morning to all of you. I am Udit Krishna, student in the Mechanical Engineering program here at IIT Madras. Before we start the proceedings today, we'll just have an invocation to the Almighty. May I now request all of you to just rise. Gajananam Bhutaganadi Sevitam Kapita Jambu Phalasara Pakshitam Kapita Jambu Phalasara Pakshitam Kalpita Jambu Phalasara Pakshitam Umasutam Shoka Vinasha Karanam Namami Vigneshwara Padapankajam Thank you. Please take your seats. Once again, welcome to this very special edition of the Reunion Day. May I now call upon the Dean of International and Alumni Relations, Professor Nagarajan, to address the gathering.
Good morning and a very warm welcome to IIT Madras on behalf of the Institute. The director will be joining us in another 15 to 20 minutes, and Mr. Gopi, who is the president of the IIT Madras Alumni Association, expresses his inability to join today because of something that came up. So I'll probably talk on behalf of both our office as well as the Alumni Association. I should say, I just met with some of the 1994 batch alumni, and you guys look just as young as the 94 batch, Must be doing something right. And I'm actually I'm an 81 alumnus from here. And so it's great to see all of you here. And I know that we got off to a little bit of a late start to the program, but I'm sure we'll get back on track, which shouldn't be an issue. So it's wonderful to see all of you. I think this year is obviously a special year for the Institute. It's the first golden anniversary of a graduating batch from IIT Madras. The 1964 and 65 batches actually graduated together in 1964. So the two of them have come together to celebrate the first ever golden reunion, and they're actually meeting in one of the conference halls, and of course they will be here tomorrow. They wanted to have their golden jubilee reunion program on Sunday, so we are doing that. But certainly if you see them around, feel free to say hi, and I'm sure they'll be very happy to meet with you also. Oh, right. During the director's address, we have invited them to join you. I hope you don't mind. The reason is the director is not available tomorrow to meet with the batch separately, as he has a personal function to attend. So with your permission, we will ask the 64, 65 guys also to join in when the director gives his speech. It's also, I think, been a good year for the Institute in other ways. We had a peer review of the institution this year. The ministry has mandated that all IITs must be peer reviewed, and so we went through our peer review, and we had a committee consisting of many alumni as well as non-alumni, many from India, many from abroad. And in fact, as a preparatory step, we had each of our departments also peer audited, and in fact, one of your batchmates, Ashok, was a member of the committee that actually reviewed the chemical engineering department. So all 16 departments have undergone a very rigorous review, and the Board of Governors has formed a special subcommittee just to track all these review reports to closure. We don't want this to be an empty exercise where the reviews are done and then no actions are taken. So both the department level reviews as well as the institute level reviews are being tracked, and every item will be closed. It's also the year where we have published our strategic plan 2020. You will all be receiving a copy of that. Many of you may have already received copies, and certainly feel free to look through. I think it gives you a fairly clear picture of where the institute thinks it should be heading by the year 2020. And you will see certainly some overriding philosophies in the document. One of the things that comes across clearly is that IIT Madras wants to be among the top 50 engineering and technology institutions in the world in every field. And by the way, I'm not sure if any of you joined the function that we had yesterday morning, but Professor David Koilpillai made a fairly detailed presentation of rankings and what they mean. And the key thing to remember is, there are lots of stories about rankings. Some of them claim IITs are not even in the top 200, top 300, but they are all based on ranking IIT as a university, which we are not. So, we clearly, it's like rating an apple as an orange. We won't do very well. But if you look at subject-wise rankings, and the one that we like to look at is the QS rankings by subject, currently civil engineering is in the top 50. All the other departments at IIT Madras are in the 50 to 100 range, except computer science, which is kind of an outlier. It's 150 to 200. So we have set ourselves a very realistic and very reasonable target that we want all of our departments to be consistently and well into the top 50 by the year 2020. I think getting to the top 40 to 30 is even achievable. That we will set ourselves as a stretch goal. And more than the rankings, I think what we've been able to do is define a set of actions that will get us there, which I think are more important than the ranking itself. And so we have segmented our strategy into various arenas. There's a set of actions we have defined in education and training, in research, in industry relations, in innovation and entrepreneurship, in sustainability and social impact, in internationalization, and in alumni relations. In the strategic plan, there's a very clear recognition that alumni are a key stakeholder in the future of the institute, and that they're also a key resource for us to draw upon as we embark on our strategic plan and try to rise to the top echelon of world universities. So we will be approaching you, as we already have been, and asking for your support in many ways. For example, alumni in academia can help us forge strong partnerships with institutions, academic institutions in the world, particularly research-based collaborations. We have a very clear strategy laid out. First stage, faculty interactions. Second stage, student exchanges. Third stage, joint supervision of doctoral thesis. And the fourth stage being joint doctorate degree programs where they make sense. And we are very systematically marching along this path. Just this year, we have established 5 new joint doctorate programs with leading universities around the world. And it's not the number so much. In fact, if you look at our strategic plan, by year 2020, we only want to have 20 joint doctorate programs. But we want to make sure that we have these programs with the best universities around the world whose research interests align best with our own. And so we certainly will look to your help. For those of you, how many of you are in academia? I know Professor Ravi Kumar. So we will be contacting you to see how you can help us get there. For those of you in industry, again, there are many ways, I think, in which we can mutually benefit each other. Obviously, IIT offers a lot of technical strengths, innovative strengths, and we think that we can add a lot of value to your industry or your business. And at the same time, you can also help us in many ways. Now, in terms of industry relations, again, we'll kind of lean upon our alumni as the initial contact points, who give us this first, I guess, nucleating site, as we chemical engineers like to call it, which can then quickly propagate. And industry can work with us in 2 ways. It could be simply sponsoring projects or taking our faculty as consultants. But more importantly, we are looking to industry to really help us build a top-class research ecosystem, which means attracting the best faculty, attracting the best graduate students, and building up the best facilities for them to do their work in. And here, I think people in industry can play a huge role. For example, some industry are now engaging with us in sponsored PhD programs. So they can actually sponsor PhD and MS students and give them a stipend that's slightly higher than the government stipend, but also give students interesting and industry relevant problems to work on and provide them a career option at the end. So the combination of these factors we feel will enable us to attract a much higher pedigree of graduate students than we are doing today. I'm sure Professor Bhaskar will mention later on, the numbers have been going up very rapidly in terms of PhD students. 2 years ago, we were graduating about 150 PhDs a year. 2 years from now, it'll be 400. By year 2020, we'll have 700 PhDs graduating per year, and we'll have 700 faculty. We are clearly there. I mean, we are expecting to graduate about 1 PhD per faculty per year, and that will put us right there with the best universities in the world. But as the numbers ramp up, it's very, very important for us to also maintain and improve the quality of our PhD intake. We want to attract more direct BTech entries into our graduate program. This is something that the US graduate schools have really benefited from, and we want to be able to do the same thing. Not just IIT students, but even the second and third year students, the brightest NIT students, the brightest even from the state government institutions. We know there are extremely good undergraduate students at these institutions also, and we would like them to consider IITs as an option when they are thinking about PhD programs. And in all this, industry can play a role, because how do you attract these students? You have to give them something different, right? And so, the higher stipend will help a little bit, because we do have to be competitive with what they can get in an IT industry job. But more importantly, they have to find problems that are challenging, and they have to have a clear career option at the end of their studies. Another example is sponsorship of chairs. For example, Chevron has sponsored a chair in chemical engineering. And you might have read recently that Chris Gopalakrishnan has funded a chair in computational brain research at 10 crores each. He's funded 3 of these chairs. I think it's these kinds of infusions of funds and initiatives that can really be disruptive. Instead of marching on a linear scale, I think these types of alumni corporate interventions can help us leapfrog. And that's really where we are looking for support from all of you as well. The third big initiative on campus today is entrepreneurship. This year, as many students have opted to either start companies or join startups as have elected to go abroad for higher studies. Nearly about, I think, 20% of placements are with startups this year. Rohit has joined a startup, our Secretary for International and Student Relations. So that is a new trend. I mean, students are really starting to think entrepreneurially. And many of you are entrepreneurs in your own right. So we do want you to come and help us groom these youngsters, so that when they do become entrepreneurs, they make all the right decisions and they are predisposed to success. Because we do worry that as so many students start thinking of starting companies, they may be somewhat misled or lured by all the riches that are out there. So they have to be mentored, they have to be counseled. And certainly infusion of funds is also necessary. We have started something called an incubation cell on campus under Professor Ashok Junjunwala. And they are also starting a fund called the Startup Fund, which was actually seed funded by alumni in the Silicon Valley to the tune of about $600,000, and we want to grow that. So the Startup Fund can also make investments into student-led enterprises and so on. But more importantly, the incubation cell provides an overarching framework of alumni-led counseling, and it's a forum. Basically, there's an IIT Madras entrepreneurship forum that has been started in Silicon Valley, and there is one in Chennai. And we would love all of you, wherever you are, to join these alumni in providing the right type of support and counseling for our students who are trying to be entrepreneurs. We also have a Center for Innovation on campus. You should take a look at it. It was funded by our batch of 1981 when we had our Silver Union. And that's really been the springboard for a lot of these entrepreneurs. And again, one of the presentations yesterday, Professor Mahesh Panchagnula, who's the faculty in charge, showed the statistics that students who have been active in the Center for Innovation have been extraordinarily successful as entrepreneurs. So we are really establishing a kind of a cradle-to-grave ecosystem on campus, which breeds student innovativeness and eventually also turns them into successful entrepreneurs. So here, given the fact that so many of our alumni are very successful entrepreneurs, We hope that you can really play a very key role in sustaining and building on this momentum that's building on campus. Sustainability, social impact. If you look at our faculty today, I would say that the research can be classified into three categories. There are faculty who like to do fundamental research, publish in journals, and that should certainly be encouraged. Then there are faculty who are doing translational research, working with industry to come up with products and services for society. And they are the people that are most likely to interface with industry. That should certainly be nurtured. And then there's a third type of faculty who are trying to do things on a real grand scale, trying to meet the grand challenges and come up with solutions that will have nationwide impact, perhaps eventually global impact. So yesterday, Ashok Junjwala made a presentation on the continuous power supply scheme that he and Professor Bhaskar are working on. They've made fantastic progress, and they are in the pilot phase right now. It's going to turn, at least in India, it's going to turn blackouts into brownouts, and it's even going to provide continuous solar DC power to households that are off the grid. So it's a fantastic thing with potential impact that's really tremendous in scale. A couple of faculty in civil engineering, alumni faculty, Mayor Prasad and Devdas Menon are working on GFRG technology, glass fiber reinforced gypsum technology, which is a rapid construction, low cost mass housing technology. There is a demo house right next to the Taramani guest house you should take a look at. It's in use today. It has 4 apartments, 3 of which are occupied. The place was built in 29 days. And the cost for a comparable footprint is about a third. So this is something now they have tied up with the Tata Housing, and there is a plan to implement this in a large scale. So there are many such examples of faculty who are getting into this type of research with huge social impact. And here again, I think corporates and alumni can really step in and provide a lot of support to these faculty. Again, not just in terms of financial, but also in terms of your expertise. You all have certain knowledge, certain experiences in this area which can prove very valuable, because our faculty, let's face it, we're like any other academician. We don't really know the real world out there. So I think you can be our bridge to the real world. So, the other initiatives I talked about, certainly international relations. I already mentioned that alumni are really a key catalyst for us in terms of promoting our tie-ups with foreign institutions, both academic as well as industrial. And finally, alumni relations. The fact that alumni are a huge support base for us, I think is well recognized now. And we are doing everything we can to reach out and touch you, so to speak. And we do want you to be receptive, where we send out many messages. The Alumni Association publishes a monthly newsletter. I actually publish a weekly message on LinkedIn. I don't know how many of you actually see it. There is one official LinkedIn group, it's called the official IIT Madras alumni group. I certainly encourage you to sign up to it if you haven't. I mean, to me right now, LinkedIn seems to be the most effective medium for reaching out to a large number of alumni. This LinkedIn group has about 8,000 registered alumni, and there is no way I can reach so many people with one mail as I can on LinkedIn. We do continue to use our Yahoo groups and other types of email-based reach-out mechanisms also, and you're certainly welcome to sign up for those as well. If you haven't registered in the database, you should do so. The Alumni Association maintains the database. So you have to go to the Alumni Association website, which is IITMAA.org. And it's a 5-minute process to register yourself, and then you will start receiving all these mailings automatically. Again, we have seen a huge increase in alumni engagement in the past few years. And in terms of fundraising, which is one of the responsibilities for our office, in addition to building international relations and alumni relations, again, 2014 has been a watershed year. We have, for the first time ever, raised more than 20 crores of funds. And that's, historically, if you look at it, IIT Madras was averaging about 3 crores a year in fundraising. A few years ago, we started to take it more seriously. So in 2011, we leapfrogged from 3 crores to 10 crores. And the last 2 years, we have done about 12 crores each year. This year, we made a concerted effort and brought it up to twice that number, 24 crores. And we will continue to progress. The $4 million figure that we have reached this year is clearly, to me, still a tip of the iceberg. I think the potential there is to be 5 times more, 10 times more, who knows? And in fact, in the strategic plan, you will notice that our office has committed to building a 500 crore corpus for the institute by the year 2020. That's a $100 million corpus with a reach target of $200 million. Now, obviously, to get there, the business as usual is not going to be sufficient. It's essential, but not sufficient. So we have made the decision at institute level and at alumni level to start a development office in the US and a development office in India, both of which will be launched in early 2015. As far as the development office in the US, again, your batchmate Ashok Santanam has been a key player in this, and he will be updating you later today on the progress that has been made. And the India Development Office has also been shaping up really well, and it will be operated by the Alumni Charitable Trust. And together, I believe that these entities, which will still be under the strategic direction of alumni, but which will be staffed by professionals who know how to do the closing, how to do the follow-up, how to close the deal. I think it's going to really, again, help us take the next step forward, because we have to keep making these disruptive changes. Otherwise, the linear progression may be okay, but we don't want to think that way. We really think that our growth should be highly exponential, and we are hoping that with your help and support, we'll get there. So, as alumni, you're always welcome on campus. We have a weekly lecture series featuring alumni. It's called the Leadership Lecture Series. We launched this about 2.5 years ago, and we have already had 80 lectures in this series. Every Friday at 5 o'clock during the semester, we have an alumnus who is the leader in his or her chosen field come and talk to the students. Students love these lectures, and we also provide for interactive sessions for the speakers before and after their talk. So it's not just come and talk and leave. They're usually here for at least half a day and spend time with our students, our faculty, our local alumni. And we have been able to derive great benefits out of this. So if you are ever in Chennai and you want to come and address the students or interact with them or the faculty, let me know. So I can kind of be your single point contact. Anything you want to do with the institute, feel free to contact me. And I will make sure that I either take care of what you want to do by myself, or I will put you in touch with the right people who can make sure that whatever you want to do gets done. Our office is extremely responsive. It's our business to serve the alumni, and we try to do it to the best of our ability. So I look forward to engaging with all of you. Now that you have got together, we find that reunions actually act as, an energizing factor. And alumni who have just been through a reunion are much more likely to interact with each other and with the institute. So the next few months to me are critical, and we want to strike while the iron is hot. So do stay in touch, and I promise to respond to your mails within 24 hours. That's something I pride myself on. And we'll make sure that we work together to make your alma mater as great as it can be. Thank you, and welcome again.
Thank you, Professor Nagarajan. The Student Secretariat for the International and Alumni Relations was formed in 2013-14 when the Dean's Office was created. Jitin Sam Varghese got it off to a memorable start, and Rohit Kothari has been a worthy successor. Here he is to tell us how students are networking with alumni.
Thank you, Udit. Good morning, all of you. My name is Rohit Kothari. I am the International and Alumni Relations Secretary of IIT Madras. I am a dual degree in Civil Engineering, Mandakini Hostel. The IITR Student Council came into existence last year, and in the couple of years, we have taken so many new initiatives to connect with alumni in whatever way is possible. It was a wonderful start by Jitin last year, and I think that we have taken it forward this year. We have forwarded our initiatives. The last year initiative, we have taken them forward, and we have added our new initiatives this year again. The first thing that we have done this year was to formulate IITR to have an established structure for IITR. And we came up with, depending upon the division of works, we came up with 5 alumni relations departments and 1 international relations department. So the first thing was alumni outreach, which will help in alumni meetings, all the student alumni meets. The second was career development, in which we wanted to help students with the help of alumni, however, in whatever way is possible. We came up with a new initiative. We launched this year our official YouTube channel for IIT Madras. It's called IITM TV. We have 6 verticals under IITM TV, which we try to cover our institute to tell more about whatever is happening in the campus so that we can connect to alumni in a better way. And the next thing was I&R branding, wherein we have so many opportunities for students from alumni, from international relations, but then the only thing that was not in our agenda was that how we connect to students. So we came up with this I&R branding, in which we try to launch campaigns, social media campaigns, so that we connect more to students. Then design team, which helps us with all the aesthetics of I&R. I&R creative. We have 2 blogs that we have launched. One is called Chennai 36. It is the alumni blog of IIT Madras, wherein alumni write articles so that students get benefited from whatever experiences our alumni had. And one more blog for international relations called Insti Spice, wherein international students share their experiences when they come to India, where they have visited, what all places they have seen, and the students from IIT Madras who go to foreign universities for their exchange programs or internships, they share their experiences. IPALs are the 3 students body who usually manage the international students in the campus. We have buddy for each and every international student. We ensure that they mingle well with the students here in the campus, and all the difficulties that they face, we try to solve them. So these are the basic departments. So I'll just quickly go through all the initiatives that we have taken and we have completed. So alumni outreach team, we have under alumni outreach team Mentor for Interns, wherein during the summer vacations, what we did was all the interns in that particular city, we had a get together with the alumni in that particular city. So the chapters and the interns, we had a get together, we had lunch, we had some activities together. It was done in Bangalore, Chennai and Delhi. Next is Telethon, one of the most important initiatives, wherein we call alumni, we check the database, we update the database regularly. Last year, we started this initiative, and this year we have expanded. Right now, we have almost called 5,600 alumni, though the success rate is 20%, very less. But then we have been growing it. Next is Alumni Day of Service, which we are starting this with tomorrow, again, Golden Reunion. So Alumni Day of Service is like the alumni get together for a social work. Tomorrow we are having we are calling some students from orphanage. They'll be coming to campus, and then we have organized some activities for them. So all other activities that connect students with alumni, like donations, interview for donations that they have done, that were done by alumni, and several other initiatives. So that's alumni outreach. So this is the Mentor for Interns, Bangalore, Delhi and Chennai. And this is the Alumni Day of Service, which we are organizing tomorrow. The associated NGO is Prayag Matram. The other department, career development, we have started several clubs in the campus which have got huge and tremendous responses. Finance club, wherein the conveners are the students who are interested into finance, who have done their internships in finance in some good firms and all, and then they are the conveners. They help students. It's interactive sessions. And we take help from alumni who organize lectures, who organize some workshops. So the finance club was started by in collaboration with the faculty. Again, then we started with analytics club. The analytic club has the response that it got, it was tremendous. Every session we have around 300 students participating in it. We have also collaborated with 2 companies which would like to hire interns from those clubs, and they would like to come and conduct some workshops and training for the students. So it has been going on really well. Then we have organized Career Connect and mock interviews for the final year students, wherein just before the placements, we organize, we ask alumni to come over in the campus and help students with their experiences, where and how they should talk in the interviews, how they should be, how the body language should be, and all those things. And also we have mock interviews wherein we ask alumni to take interviews of students depending upon the sectors they have applied in. Then the new thing that we are going to start is called ACS Club, Asia Pacific Entrepreneur Summit. So this summit is basically for the people who want to start up in the campus. We are in coordination with the Stanford ACS Club. So all the members of the club who have done extremely well in this club will get a chance and opportunity to go to Stanford. So this is the clubs that we organized. Next, we have some team initiatives. We have the first time ever we organized this aspiring coordinator meet, so that we are open to all the students who wanted to apply. Last year there were around 9 to 10 students who worked with IITR, and this year the numbers have increased to 90 students. So because of the ACM, the students got to know about our IITR, they applied and we have hired them, and it has been going really well. We had some campaigns to publicize about our ACMs. So we got around 300 students come here and attend the show. Leadership lecture series, as Professor Nagarajan said, it is one of the most interesting lecture series in the campus. The students really love to come attend these lectures because they are by some of the visionaries that they would like to get motivated from. Freshie commendation, which we are starting again. The work is the fundamental of this was to bring in the feeling of being an alumni amongst the students of IIT Madras. So basically, we are right now launching something called Alumni in Waiting Card. It might also be called as Student to Alumni S2A card. So we have changed the name. So it's called S2A card, wherein we are going to give students this card with some deals. So if they show this card to some restaurant outside, they'll get 50% discount or something like that. This card will help us get the database of students. We can have customized mailing later on, depending upon the hobbies of students. So this will be very useful initiative in the long term. That's what I feel. So it has a very good future vision, and I think we can get all the students of IIT Madras on board. This Chennai 36 initiative was started last year by Jatin. It is one of the biggest alumni blog. I think there is no other IIT that has this blog. So what we do is we write to alumni. We ask them to write one article depending upon the vertical. So we have sports vertical, we have placement vertical, so many other verticals. Alumni write for them, and then we circulate it to the students so that students can benefit from this. I think we will also write to you so that we get your articles as well, so that we can help students in this way. Chennai 36 team, we have around 18 editors right now, and we are planning to increase it. We are planning to hire correspondents from the freshies. So we have a long way to go. We have around 180 articles right now on the blog. Next is IITM TV, as I was talking about. It's official YouTube TV channel of IIT Madras. We have 6 verticals, wherein we have alumni diaries, wherein we interview alumni. We have I Love Insti. We have Salute India, wherein we tell how alumni of IIT Madras have been donating to India, how IIT Madras has been helping our society, and so that will be under Salute India. Then we have something called Insti Bulletin, wherein what we do is we try to capture all the activities that happen in the campus for the entire month, and we come up with a news bulletin telling in short what all things happened, who won LitSoc, who won TechSoc, on all those details, which we tell in short in like 10 minutes video. So we have like 6 verticals under IITM TV. Under international relations, we organize International Day, wherein all the foreign students, they come and perform. We have cultural activities performed by them. So some of these students have done Kathak, they perform Bihu, on all other different traditional dances. We have a kind of a fashion show wherein all the international students, the attire that they wear is a traditional attire. Some wear Punjabi clothes and all those things. So we have one international day wherein we try to explain and try to immerse the cultures from various Italian to the Indian cultures. So we try to combine these two and present something to the audience. It was received very well, we got a good response, and it was a very fantastic show. Next is InstiSpice blog, wherein, as I've already mentioned, the blog, it will be the share experiences of all the travels and all the details that students want to tell the other students. So basically, International Day was somewhat like this, and InstiSpice blog, we have Indian Affairs and International Affairs. It was like a newspaper reading. Upcoming initiatives. So this will be in the next semester. A day at IIT Madras, which was Professor Nagarajan's initiative. It was like we wanted to bring all the students who are right now in 12th standard, who are undergoing coaching for JEE, the top students, to bring them in the campus and to show them how awesome IIT Madras is, so that it is one of their first preferences and we get good bright students in the campus. Next, we have batch of 2015 initiatives, wherein we take projects from the students and we ask them to pledge amount and then ask them to fund these projects. We have alumni weekend, wherein we plan to go to the cities, chapters, Bangalore, Delhi, Chennai, Mumbai, and then we plan to organize some small concerts or small events for the alumni. Chapters updation, which is like the recent batches, as we were talking to alumni, the recent batches are not there in the chapters. So we would like to start this. We would like to start the updation of chapters with the recent batches being enrolled into the chapters lists. IIT Madras World Day, this is a new initiative. We thought that all the IIT Madras alumni across the world celebrate this one day. We have to still ideate it. We are still doing it. We'll let you know. Department reunions, they're coming up. We have this year Civil PG reunion and HS department reunion coming up in the next semester. One more initiative that we're thinking of starting is called Day by Visionaries, wherein we're planning to call upon some really elite personalities, visionaries in the campus, say Nobel laureates, and then we organize a talk, an entire day of these talks and presentations, so that students and alumni both come together on the same platform and get to learn. So this was the yearbook. So yearbook is like the database of all the final year students who are passing out. We have their photographs, we have their micro RGs, wherein micro RGs are like students tell about themselves, what they are good at. So students like I was workaholic or something like that. So all the details, small details with their photographs will be there in the yearbook. It was last year's. This year also we're going to continue it. So that was about it. We will be calling you, mailing you. Please don't mind. So thank you. So that will be all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rohit. May I now call upon the batch representatives of the 74 batch to say a few words, please.
Good morning, everyone. There must be something happening. I think a lot of people say Indian culture starts from Ganga, so maybe that's appropriate. Anyway, I'm delighted to be here. The last 5 years, I think I've been on this podium probably about 10 times. But this time it's very special because somehow I got nominated to be representing this elite group of people sitting here, and some of us who are not here but still belong to the elite group. It's nostalgic. It's very interesting and humbling in some ways, to connect back with the batch of students who graduated with me. Back in '74, we put together, I don't know, Bhaskar and Nagarajan, if you have seen the details of the book that's been put together, and you go through that, and it's very humbling to see what people have accomplished over the years. And it kind of feels good that you are in good company. So that's the positive side of coming to a reunion like this, I guess. In terms of message back to the Institute, both Professor Nagarajan and Professor Bhaskar are in some ways juniors to us, so we'll take the opportunity to give them a lecture. So I think first of all, I must say that in the last few years, especially the last 5-6 years, I've been interacting with the campus here. I am very enthused about the energy that I'm seeing put in by both Professor Nagarajan and Professor Bhaskar and other people that I've interacted with. You've heard some of the initiatives. One can sit and find, areas to improve. And many of us have been professors. We have been leaders in our own right, and we probably have a different perspective. So the positive thing I would say is that we are seeing significant initiatives taken by the Institute. I think some of us definitely resonate with those, and we want to help. The few things that I noticed where particularly our batch and other batches of alumni can help is not only in the contribution in cash. Professor Nagarajan was talking about 100 million by 2020, very laudable goal. But I think there is another aspect which kind of came through, but I feel like maybe needs to come through stronger, is the expertise that we can bring to the table. Whether it's in academia, whether it's in experience in the industry or startup culture and so forth. The group of people that graduated many years ago, the batch of 74, and I see some of our seniors walk in, so the batch of 64, the 69 batch, I guess, 64, 65. So the level of expertise that is available in this room, in terms of the number of years, the number of varieties of things that people have done, it's tremendous. It's not easy to get a group like this together, anywhere. And I would submit that that's an area we should seriously look at exploring in terms of how we can help. Yesterday, Ramakrishnan, Prabhu, and we went and spent some time at the research park. We were looking at some of the innovative things that people are trying to do. That's an area where we could be mentors or provide support. Professor Nagarajan mentioned working with academia. We do have some very seriously successful professors here working at great institutions around the world. So if we can connect back with them, something that you mentioned, I think that would be another way. So providing support by way of cash is certainly one way of helping the Institute. Providing support by way of the expertise and the knowledge that we can share is another very important way. The third thing that I feel we could do, I've been in India now for a few years. Through my job, I interact with some government officials too. There is a lot of interest in India to have public-private partnerships. There are countries outside, like the United States, like the United Kingdom, Australia, I believe France too. So there are several countries who are interested and who have mechanisms to work with the government of India, and especially in the areas of science and engineering and technology and so forth. And many of those initiatives require some kind of a partnership between an Indian university, a university in that country, or some kind of an industry that would benefit from these interactions. And I feel that's another mechanism we should explore, because there are funds available that can help us to multiply the impact that we are making. If you have X amount of money and then you are able to tap into the government of India resources or the US government resources, for example, that would significantly increase what we could do with those funds. So that's another area I would submit that we should seriously look into and consider getting involved with the Institute so we could do things. So those are some other things that I wanted to say, I wanted to share here. Again, it's a very humbling experience to come and meet up with our batchmates who graduated with us and people who graduated 5 years earlier. And they graduated 10 years. Oh, that's right, 50 years. So I'm losing my mind here. So people who graduated, many years before us, and they are coming back to the campus and connecting. I think it's a very different kind of experience. Maybe I'm getting overwhelmed here because I'm making all these mistakes. But anyway, on the lighter note, again, thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I think, Santi, you're next.
Okay, this is all Sant's doing. He was supposed to be the representative, but he dodged it, and he's taking, and I've been volunteered. So you're stuck with me there. First of all, I think I'm stunned by how young the students now look. In fact, not only do they look young, all the profs look positively adolescent. And indeed, seeing our distinguished 10 years senior batch of 64, 65, you guys make us look pretty old. So well done. The other thing, the interesting thing is, we're back 40 years afterwards, and in fact, we are, as some people have said, a number of years senior to Prof. Nagarajan, Dairo, and so on. And I wonder how many of you guys were ragged by us when we were at college. I don't hold it against us. I must say, coming back to IIT, there are so many memories of OAT, memories of Mardi Gras, memories of winning the intra-IIT for the first time in our year, you might remember. Chicky certainly will. So some grand memories there. But I think, what did IIT mean to us? For me, as with most of you, when we came here, we were 16, 15, 17 perhaps. Young men, first time away from home. We got here, it was 5 years in the hostels. And we were left confident 21-year-old young men and one woman. We in fact ready to face the world and make a success of us. And I must say, on that one woman point, I'm really impressed by how many more females there are on campus. That's a tremendously positive development that IIT has done, among many other things. I think fantastic. The other thing about IIT is, in an increasingly venal society that India sometimes seems to be, IIT remains a bastion of absolute meritocracy. Merit is how you progress. That's the only way, always has been, and hopefully always will be. And that, again, is tremendous. Over 40 plus years that we've maintained that. That's terrific. When I left IIT, I mean, most of the others either stayed in India or headed off to the US. Along with Rajiv Sridhar, I kind of got lost at Heathrow and went inland rather than get the plane to the US, and I stayed in England. And at the time, nobody knew about IIT. And Indian engineers were seen as good for being bus drivers or shopkeepers, but not to work in industry and so on. And that's changed tremendously. Now IIT is well recognized, as you saw in the video earlier, as being absolutely world class. And as one good reason for that, and that's the tremendous efforts and capabilities of all of you, the guys before us, the guys after us, over those years that have developed this reputation. I think that's absolutely fantastic. A long way to continue. Final point, it was always a regret, as Frank Sinatra said. I think the one thing I certainly regret over my years is we haven't, despite all our capabilities and achievements, developed world-class, global leading technology companies like the Koreans have, or the Taiwanese, or even the Israelis. And I hope this generation of IITians will do that and show us where to take IIT in the tradition. So with that, thank you very much. Appreciate your attention.
Thank you so much, sir. As we were speaking, we were joined by the 64-65 batch. A very warm welcome to you guys, and congratulations on your Golden Jubilee reunion. You guys made it just in time for the address by our esteemed director, Professor Bhaskar Ramamurthy. Sir, could you please come and share your thoughts?
Good afternoon, oh, not yet, good morning to all of you. It's great to be here, great to see so many people turned out in uniform. So I decided to join you. We have the distinguished alumni from our first batch. 64 is the first batch, right? And 65 also with us. Then we have 10 years down the line. And I think, of course, the Silver Reunion people are not here today. Are they here? No, they were left, right? They were here day before yesterday night. And so they're from the 89 batch. And what I thought I'll do is I didn't want to use any presentation. Wanted to see if I could react to what I see as might be the questions or thoughts in your minds. Let me briefly convey to you a sense of where we are heading from, as a in a maybe there is acceleration, maybe there are some changes in. There are definitely changes in our objectives from what it was in your time, in my time. I'm the 1980 batch. But it is nevertheless part of a continuing story. It's not, there's no radical departure. So let me give you a sense of that. When pretty much in the time of all the people assembled in the room here, right up to, I would say, even our batch and, well, even into the batches which I taught, starting here in 86, till about the 90s, I would say, there's a fair amount of continuum. Maybe the numbers increase a little bit, and that is the institute was predominantly an undergraduate institution. It always had a good master's program. It always had PhD students from the earliest years. The master's programs stabilized quite a bit in the 90s, late 80s and 90s, and the PhD program was modest, but we always had a reasonable number of PhDs coming out every year. And the biggest sort of beneficiaries of those programs, the master's and the PhD programs, were the Indian scientific establishment, technology establishments, ISRO, DRDO, BARC, and so on, and the academic institutions in the country. The undergraduate story, the story of the undergraduates, I think, is well known, and that's really what gave the IITs a global reach. And of course, this is not to say that some of our PhDs and masters graduates did not do well across the globe, but predominantly it's the undergraduates. Starting about to the beginning of this millennium and accelerating beyond 2007, 2008, there's a shift, and the undergraduate program continues to be important, and in fact it's grown in size. We now have 850 undergraduate students coming in every year, of whom 45 are in the arts. We have a 5-year BA and MA program in the Humanities and Sciences department. There's a separate entrance exam for that. But the other 800 odd are in engineering and engineering. But at the same time, what has changed is that we have now an equal number, about 800 students coming in to do PhD and masters by research. PhD is about 500, and masters by research is about another 300. So the number of people coming in, research scholars coming into the institute every year, is the same as the undergraduates. That's a big change. In addition, of course, we have the MTech and MSc course programs. That's an MBA, and that's another 800 or so. So the undergraduate intake is about a third of the total in a year. And the total student population as a result is about 8,500. The increase in the research scholar population was partly a natural. It started happening about between 5 to 10 years ago as a response to increased demand, both in academia in the country, as in a growing number of institutions, and in industry. A survey that we did of the PhD graduates who came out of the institute between 2007 and 12, we found that a third, after graduation, after finishing their PhD, went into industry. And the analysis of the industry is it's a very healthy mix of global companies, Indian companies, as well as the strategic and defense establishments. And another third went into teaching, and a third went for postdocs, and we haven't tracked them. I suspect they would also have gone half and half after they finished their postdoc. It's partly a response to the increased demand. We actually saw more people coming in to do these degrees, but partly it is also a conscious decision of the IIT system as a result of the deliberations of the committee headed by Anil Kakodkar. So now there is a clear policy, a mandate by the government of India that the IITs should graduate on average about one PhD student per faculty member per year, which is a number that is used very often in many research-intensive universities across the world. So that means that we have about 550 faculty now, so that's where those numbers come from, which I told you, and that's where we'll be stabilizing at. So as the number of faculty grow towards 700 in the next 5-6 years, our research scholar intake will also grow to about, the MS is like half a PhD, so it will grow to about 900 or so per year. And the necessary resources for carrying on such a large research program, which is funding for the students. The funding for the research scholars comes directly from the government as scholarships. And of course, the faculty have to write projects and proposals and raise money mostly, because that has to be done on a competitive basis. They have to raise money from the science ministries for their research labs. So most faculty equip their labs by competing for funds, and both from government and from industry. As Bala was mentioning, there is a lot of scope for industry to actually leverage funding that the government is quite happy to actually provide and be leveraged. And that is, while the government of India doesn't, as a policy, unlike Israel, fund private companies to do research, they're very happy to fund institutions like the IIT with the infrastructure. And in fact, if you have companies that are joining with the institute to use that infrastructure to not only beyond the pursuit of academic research, to actually do something that is of value to industry, that actually it counts for more in the competitive bidding. The government is really happy that when they see that happen. So there is a very positive approach of the government towards industry, teaming up with the IITs to take advantage of these facilities and do some collaborative work that results in the kind of technologies, the kind of companies that was mentioned that India doesn't yet have to show, and that is to create really strong technology companies, products in the world. So there is a huge opportunity here, and on that front also we're doing quite well. Among all the IITs, actually a recent ranking agencies ranked us number 1 in terms of industrial funding. So we have a very healthy growth rate there, and we intend to pursue that very strongly. So coming back, I'll come to research in a minute separately, but this is where the institute is heading in terms of what the composition of the student population is like and what the pursuits of the students are. Before I leave that topic, let me also tell you there are changes in what the students, you would expect that. The generations are changing rapidly now, every 5 or 6 years. So there are changes in what the students aspire for, what they want to do. This 800 students who come in at the age of 16, 17, whatever, 18 now, they are as bright, some say brighter than what they were earlier. But they are now a larger group. You would expect a lot more diversity in what they aspire to do, where they come from, and what their backgrounds are. There's tremendous diversity now. We get people from all over the country. Apart from that, we get a fair number from rural areas now. People who mark themselves down as rural are about 18%. And we get a fair number who are from first generation learner families. So there's huge diversity. And aspirations are also very different. Just some data, the placement season that's ongoing at the moment. First round of placements, about 800 students have been placed in all, including masters and undergraduate, but largely undergraduate, and not largely, say slightly high, 80% undergraduate have been placed, 60% of the master students have been placed. So little, out of the 800 that have been placed, little more than 50% are undergraduates. 115 of them have actually joined startups. Okay, so that should tell you what they are thinking about, what's driving them. Our own incubation cell here is seeing a lot of traction, a lot of interest among students and younger faculty to start companies. I think we're going to see a tremendous amount of this in the next few years. And these are not just in e-commerce and other spaces. We have students starting companies in everything from electric scooters to more efficient parts for drones, all kinds of things, a lot of technology stuff, hard technology stuff. So medical devices and so on. There's a lot of interest in entrepreneurship. These are students who are coming in to the IITs because it's a challenge to get in. It's the best place to go to in the country. People change their minds about what they want to be after they come in here when they enter their adulthood. So we do see a fair number going into other areas, finance, whatever it is. I think it doesn't matter. The real issue is that there's a lot of diversity. There are a good number going into engineering. And the biggest change, I would say, in very recent years is this tremendous interest in entrepreneurship. And I think this is the one that's going to be growing tremendously at the expense of everything else. And you can watch this space in the next few years to see what happens. There is a strategic plan that you can read about if you go to the website. I don't know if Nagarajan is giving you copies here or whatever, but you can also go to the website and get a soft copy from there. The strategic plan is a consensus document that we've evolved over the last few years. It's also evolving as we learn more, but basically it has some very clear directions on what we want to do regarding our curriculum, regarding our research, regarding our infrastructure, our entrepreneurship development, all-round development of our students, and so on and so forth. So in curriculum, I think it's very hard to predict. We are bringing in some of the brightest students in the country. I'm sure there are many, many more, but these are some of them. And we don't want to constrain them in any way. We want to provide the widest possible choice. There are some constraints that are unavoidable in the context in which the IITs are set up, and that is they have to choose their branch when they come in. That is not going to go away very soon. But within that constraint, after making sure that the students do enough justice to the degree that they're going to get, we are moving towards a curriculum which provides the maximum possible choice to enable students to define themselves in somewhat different ways, even though nominally they're getting the same degrees, even if they get the same degrees, and shape themselves by doing courses and taking up subjects, fields of study which they are passionate about, which they want to learn. We want to provide that kind of flexibility, and that's where our curriculum is heading, especially as we increase our faculty strength. Our ability to cater to diverse interests improves. That's sort of a broad guideline. There are hard numbers for everything in that strategic document. It's not just pious statements. So we have some idea about how we want to do that, how we want to free up the curriculum, and so on. The other thing that we want to do is to increase the avenues for students to pursue, as we put it in the document, at least one other interest other than academics, whether it's sports, whether it's arts, whether it's some hobbies, whatever it is. Particularly these days, compared to even the times when we came in, students spend a good part of the last 3-4 years before they get into the IIT just mugging away. So the chance to develop in a better fashion, a more rounded fashion, it actually starts after they come in here. And we want to make sure that we can't railroad people into anything, but we have to provide them the widest possible choice, make it as attractive as possible, get people drawn into these things, And so we have a general policy and a general decision to open as many clubs and activities as possible. Most of it in the co-curricular and extracurricular sector. People volunteering, doing it because they like to do it. The Center for Innovation is one of that. Then there are so many sports clubs. There are avenues in the arts are also being expanded. Literature, everything. So we just really want to, this is one way in which we want to address that, the issue of letting the students develop in a much more rounded fashion. So this is broadly our approach now as regards the, and because we get students from diverse backgrounds, we have to also provide much more by way of support services, counseling, and so we are expanding our idea of what counseling is to not just counseling for people who are in trouble of some kind, but actually counseling for all, and also not waiting till the end of the till they get into the final year to help them prepare themselves for industry and jobs and so on, but actually enable students again on a voluntary basis to round themselves better, prepare themselves better for entrepreneurship or career in industry or whatever. So we are trying to expand our offering of support services also. A lot of these things used to happen informally in our time. It happened in the hostels. It happened amongst each other. That approach, we found out, doesn't scale beyond a point. It also doesn't survive the counter pressures of the Facebook age. So we have to actually formally provide more services. And that's really where we are moving. We have a growing organization called Mitra, which provides this. And so we have expanded it to much beyond support services just for those who are in some kind of trouble or who need some help. So these are broadly, I would say, what defines our strategy with regard to the student, directly affecting the students. Since research and research scholars are a significant number of the students, let me now move on to what our strategy for research is. We have, it's an academic institution with academic freedom, so all faculty here are expected to do research and are measured for the research they do for their career advancement. But we do not tell them what research they should do, what type of research they should do. Should they do research that leads to products? Should they do research that leads to new knowledge? We leave it to faculty to decide, each one to his or her own taste. By the way, we have 65 or 70 women faculty now. That's about 12%. It's not great, but it's not bad. And it's improving. It's across all departments. It's not just in the humanities or sciences. We have a good number in the engineering departments. So we let faculty do what they want. There are some faculty who pursue, research with a clear view to publishing, trying to see whether they can get some breakthrough results and so on. We encourage that. There are others who are everybody does a little bit of that at least, but there are others who are driven by developing new technologies, transferring to industry, seeing something succeed, doing something that will help the next generation rocket to fly in ISRO, whatever it is. We encourage that. There's a lot of that going on. And now increasingly we have faculty who want to patent, who want to start companies, who want to take the technology and actually make sure it is consumed or used by a lot of people, as would be evidenced by success through a company. We encourage that also. There's a dimension to doing research in the IIT system in this point in time in India, and that is, we can't be unaware of the huge challenges that the country faces, whether it's in all the essentials, whether it's transportation, water, energy, healthcare, education. Doesn't matter which major area you take, the country is faced with huge challenges. We have a demographic profile where many of these things need to be addressed very quickly if we are to take advantage of the demographics. So there's a lot of impatience in getting all these things sorted out. And if you are in many of these things, technology and new innovations and disruptive thinking plays a big role. And there are faculty who are focused on these challenges also, specifically. So we have large research centers that are evolving because there are faculty who are passionate about doing something like this. They come from multiple departments. Usually these challenges cannot be addressed without a very complex multidisciplinary approach. So we have those kind of research centers. We have work going on, significant work going on in the decentralized power, for example, using solar photovoltaics and energy efficient appliances. We have a huge effort in water. We have effort in affordable housing. And all of these are things where there is stuff on the ground, there are standards being written, there are manuals being written, there are schemes being looked at a national level. So there are a bunch of faculty, they publish, they patent, they do all of that, but the focus is really addressing some of these big challenges. So that sort of flavor is also very strong in the institute. And if I can hazard a guess, I think among the IITs, and we probably have the strongest focus in this respect. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few years, IIT Madras becomes known for providing a very disruptive and successful solution for one or more of these challenges that India faces. That is something that's possible and looking quite likely. There are, at least in decentralized power and housing and water, we have stuff on the ground now, and one or more of them could end up becoming very important. So that's a certain flavor that is not usually seen in many academic institutions globally, and this is something that's definitely specific to being a technology or a scientist or an engineer or a technologist at this point in time and space in India. So our industrial consulting sponsored research is also tied into all of this. We have very specific targets on how much we want to grow. We have been growing at about 20% per year. We'll continue to do that. So we have specific targets. And there is and our research park, which we built, the first IIT to build one. And the first phase was operational from 2010. And now we are completing the remaining phase, which means we are tripling the size. That's now the other IIT, Bombay and Delhi, are starting the research parks. So this is something that really is a force multiplier in this industry IIT collaboration. There are 50 odd companies there in the research park in the first phase, and it will obviously grow to about 150. Big ones, small ones, multinational ones, small mom and pop companies, but all focused on doing technology development jointly with faculty and students of IIT. Our incubation ecosystem is also there, which is very, very good for the companies that are getting incubated. So this whole thing is very important part of the IIT now. This is very different from what it was when we were students. Not that actually ICSR was already a reality in 78, I think, by the time some of us graduated, but those are early days, and it's taken all this time, but it's now grown to a big enterprise. Today, the amount of money coming in through funded research to the institute is of the same order, little less than the amount of money that comes into the institute from the Ministry of Human Resources Development to run the institute. So it's a very big chunk of our total funding. In the amount of money that comes in for funded research, about 20% comes from industry. The patenting, licensing of patents, we have not learned how to do that yet. Patenting we are doing quite well now, but licensing of patents is something we are beginning to learn how to do. And of course, the startups definitely depend on the patents that they develop, but even otherwise, our faculty now develop fairly interesting processes, products, technologies, which we are beginning to learn how to license to big companies, small companies who need them and can use them to improve their own products. The infrastructure is a very big issue when you are growing at this rate. The energy intensity and space intensity of activities has tremendously increased. the time when you were students, what did you have? You had departments basically to run classes and run the labs, some research facilities, though that was always modest in those days, hostels, and then faculty residence, staff faculty residences. That's all there was. Now we have huge labs, huge research centers. Numbers of students and everything has increased. So there's a tremendous need. And of course, the energy intensity of activity has gone up. A lot more air conditioning, a lot more fancy equipment, a lot of generators, a lot of our own standards of, we now are committed to providing access to physically challenged students everywhere on campus. So all our buildings have lifts, even if they are single-story buildings, ground plus one. And so, everything is, and lifts in India, in the Indian context means every lift has to have a generator. So the whole thing is now much more, the best way to describe it is energy intensity is very high. So this kind, we have to develop this kind of a campus, not in an industrial setting, not in a setting where it's a commercial property, but it's a property that somehow we inherited with a lot of trees and a lot of animals. I don't want to call it a forest or a wildlife sanctuary because it's not, by any stretch of the imagination, but we have all of them living with us. And it's been a challenge, and it's been an interesting challenge. How do we make this happen? So we have taken the help in the last 10 years at least of experts in this, experts in wildlife, experts in foresters, all kinds of. We have a committee of experts who helps us. They're consultants from outside. They tell us how we should go about doing this. For them also, it's a first. They are used to telling people how to maintain a forest. They are used to telling people how to maintain gardens, but they are not used to telling people how to run an institute with such energy intensity in the middle of trees and animals. So we are learning how to do that. Sometimes, most of the times, I find the solutions are quite out of the book, and we also have to teach ourselves to be more considerate. We also have to learn how to adjust our needs to these circumstances. So this has been a challenge, but I hope you will agree with me as you go around the campus that we've been reasonably successful in doing it. The broad indicators, if you look at it, numbers and so on, number of black buck, number of monkeys, everything, I think we are doing very well. We're not able to find out from them how happy they are, but otherwise we are doing very well. Okay, so it's a challenge, especially in the Indian context, making sure we don't have litter, making sure we don't quietly dump chemicals in the under the trees. All of these are a big challenge here, and we are addressing that very seriously all the time. As even if you decide that you want to do it properly, you want to get rid of let's say tube lights, right? Let me tell you, even now the state doesn't have a way in which you can get rid of tube lights. You can only quietly go and bury them somewhere. Chemicals and stuff has come in now. Now there are well organized procedures for getting rid of chemicals, disposing them properly, and so on. So we can just plug into those. But all these came in the last 10, 20 years. It's not that they were there before. So as a nation, even this ecosystem around us is evolving. So we have to learn to plug into that. But sometimes we have to develop our own and manage all of this high intensity activity that goes on here. So, but we are also trying, and I think we are very close to being successful in getting some additional land, not too far from here. And we don't have very clear plan of what we want to do, but I think it will evolve as the big research centers. I can see, we have research centers here, but if things really, if some research efforts become very successful and you have global scale research centers, you need a lot of elbow room. You can't constrain people at the time saying there are monkeys here, there are deer there. It becomes very difficult. So we do need elbow room, and especially for the research centers, the large interdisciplinary research centers, and that's really what the additional land, I think, will be all about, so that a 55-year-old institute is not constrained. But the core teaching programs, everything will continue here. I think, anyway, as per the vision of the government, as reflected in the acceptance of the Kakodur Committee's recommendations, I think the idea is that every IIT will grow to about 10,000 students. So we are almost there. So I think the IIT is not going to double in size any beyond this. So we have sort of evolved, and the infrastructure will get to the point where that can be supported here, but the associated capabilities, particularly in research, entrepreneurship, and so on, I think the elbow room for that is what the additional land will give us. So that's sort of the broad picture on infrastructure. We are, one of the big goals, challenges for us is to learn how to create and maintain infrastructure that is world class within our constraints, and that is something that we have not been successful at. It is an explicit goal in our strategic plan. We are addressing it very actively. Doesn't necessarily mean it has to be fancy, but it does mean it has to be clean, it has to be tidy, it has to be visibly something that is sustaining itself, running properly, and that's something that is also a very important evolution in our systems and processes. Alumni, I think, play a very important role when we are on this kind of a path, whether it's in our curriculum, whether it's in our research, entrepreneurship, infrastructure. One of the things, for example, that we have proposed with respect to really increasing the bite of our industry collaborative research is to bring in a small number but very good professors of practice. These are people who have experience in industry, who for some reason want to, at some point in their career, usually in the second half or last quarter, want to switch to a semi-academic role. This model is not new, it's there in many universities across the world. In Germany, it happens automatically. People actually go between being full-time academics and full-time employees in industry, back and forth. In the US, many universities have this same idea of professors of practice, though the two-way flow is not that common in the US. So we want to enable a certain number of really highly competent and skilled people from industry to be able to, who wish to actually have a semi-academic role, to come and be professors of practice in the institute and not only teach their specialized knowledge and supervise students and so on, but actually enable. The real tough thing is to figure out how the new capabilities in the institute, as reflected by the younger faculty, can be leveraged and can be used to develop new capabilities in industry. That is not quite an easy thing to do. It doesn't happen very easily from web pages and so on. So that kind of incisive approach to industry academia collaboration is what we are looking for. So there are all these kinds of specifics in the strategic plan. You can read it yourself. But in all of these things, I think alumni can play a very big role. Fundraising, I think the 100 million goal is basically something that will enable us to do many of these things. Some of the things that we have outlined, a lot of it will be achieved with government funding, but some of it cannot be done with government funding. So we want to create this endowment so that we can, actually catalyze and accelerate growth in some of these efforts. I'll give you two examples if you don't mind. I'll give you an example. Using endowments for chair professors, the most recent one being the chair created by Chris Gopalakrishnan, which is endowed at a global level, meaning the endowment is big enough to compensate the occupants at globally competitive rates. We are using these chairs to actually bring in experts from different parts of the world to catalyze completely new areas. So Chris's chairs are meant to, he's creating 3 of them, are meant to create an entire new research group and even ultimately teaching in the area of computing paradigms that are based on understanding of the human brain. Okay, it goes under various names, jargon, but that's really what it is. And our first occupant is going to come here in the first week of January, and the commitment of that occupant, his name is Partha Mitra, has actually helped create such a group here, recruit new faculty, help them set up that kind of research. We have a similar effort in biotechnology in another endowed chair, and that person is trying to create a new effort in biological systems engineering, working mostly with faculty from other departments, not from the biotechnology department. So, and he's himself a biologist from Cambridge. So these kinds of things, these two happen to be not to be alumni, but there could be alumni who can do these kind of things. There could be alumni who could support this kind of activity. So that's why we're looking for this 100 million, the endowments, certain types of infrastructure. One of the ideas we are toying with as and when the new land materializes is that we will actually build the academic part of the campus completely with private funding, and build only the housing and all of that, hostels and all of that with government funding, right? That enables us to do things somewhat in a different way, run it very differently. So all these kinds of ideas which we are toying with, which is where that number comes from. It's not a number just because 100 million is a nice number to throw, but it's a number that's been worked out keeping these ideas in mind. Fundraising is one aspect, but more than that, it is the possibility for alumni and others who, as I said, these two, the first two that we are doing to set up these completely new areas of research, they're not alumni actually. So, but people who want to, do this, and many of them could be alumni, work with us as professors of practice, create new areas, help our entrepreneurs, right? So one of the, I don't want to name him, but one of the leading industrial captains of industry, as they call them in India, in Chennai, actually comes and spends 4 hours every other week with our entrepreneurs as a mentor here. This is a person who otherwise normally attends only board meetings. Okay, so it's that kind of possibility that is there, and it can be any one of these things, right? We have, as somebody pointed out, our alumni end up in all kinds of areas. We have authors, we have writers, we have singers, I'm sure we have people, and we have, I think, people who are naturalists and so on. So even if it could be helping the institute figure out how to better run the campus, better fit into the environment, any one of these things, we are open to alumni and non-alumni who want to participate in this, taking a big stab at meeting our finding solutions to the challenges that we face in India. It is, somebody mentioned that the IITs can be happy that they've maintained certain standards in the years since they were created. I think that is true. Integrity and may not have always produced the highest quality of output in everything we've done, but we've never been, I would say, we can safely claim we've never been venal. So then the effort is clearly to raise the bar of quality in everything that we do. And that's in that effort, I think, as broadly, anybody who cares for that can join in, particularly the alumni. With that message, I want to stop now and, throw the floor open for questions. Any kinds of questions, good, hard, embarrassing, fine. I'll take it. Please use a mic and introduce yourself.
I was just curious, in the 800 students that you admit across branches, how would they split?
Well, we have our, actually, the IITs have a fair amount of autonomy. The government only says you have to take in 800 students. They don't say how many in each branch. If you shut down some very popular branches or cut back, there'll be a backlash, because the public will be a backlash. So you got to watch how many seats you have in computer science, electronics, and so on. But otherwise, they let us do what we want. So it is, broadly, things have grown proportionately to how, because you need the faculty, you need this resources. So every time there's been a growth, departments have grown proportionately, but only broadly. There have been trade-offs. We have grown some and sort of kept others at a certain level, but it's across all departments. There are 11 engineering departments, and we now have intake even in the sciences. The physics department admits people for integrated BSMS program in physics, biological sciences. So it's not only engineering, but primarily engineering. But the big ones are big still. Mechanical is still 100 plus, electrical is 100, civil, those are all. The big hitters are still big hitters. Yeah.
Second question was, the CSIR is having a program of 100 doctoral scholarships between industry and academia. How is it going? Are you having a lot of people coming from industry and a lot of IIT PhDs?
We have not. Actually, there are some like that. There's the president's, Prime Minister's thing also.
Yes.
Actually, to tell you the truth, we have not been very quick in exploiting some of those. I think there's a certain laziness here, because unlike other institutions, other universities and so on, anybody who gets into the PhD program in IIT automatically gets a scholarship, and not a bad one at that. I think these special ones only give a little bit more, but they also ask for a whole lot of documentation and a whole lot of other things, and you have to deal with these individual ministries and so on. So there's a certain amount of laziness in not going for that. Not entirely justified because they have a prestige associated with them, but we don't have too many of those because, as I said, students get most of that anyway. But we should be pursuing that.
They're actually focusing on industry.
Yeah, but you see, the point is, there are faculty in this institute who are very, very working very closely with industry. PhD students who work with them get that anyway. If you join some other faculty who is not focused on industry, you're not going to get it, even if it's just a scholarship. I think the aim of those scholarships is that the IIT system doesn't depend on that, which is not to say that we should not go for those scholarships. But I think, those are not game changers for us. Okay.
During the time when we graduated around 74, and we found that there was a lot of problem in, some of us faced that, getting the industrial training during the final year. Even today, of course, I don't know enough about IIT Madras, what is their experience about industry training. But there is a general feeling in most industry professionals that people who come fresh out of college, even if it is IIT, are not of so much use directly to the industry unless they go through some amount of training in the industry. So for that, some people have tried this concept of some kind of working experience. It's a education beyond the classroom education, finishing school as they call it. So is there any such movement within IIT through some of the industry? I mean, there are many companies where IIT Madras people are at the helm of the affairs in the company. So is there any movement where finishing school like environment is being created for the IIT Madras students?
Okay. So industrial training continues to be a requirement, and we are placing people quite well in that. It's not, I think the institute has now got a formal process actually for finding internships for our students. So it's, while what you're saying is true to some extent, 6 weeks is what the duration is. A lot of companies balk that you can't do much in 6 weeks and so on. So those issues are there. With regard to students not being ready for the job, this is a battle that's always going on between industry and academia. And I think we don't hesitate to tell industry that while we are quite willing and in fact interested in constantly update and do actually constantly update our curriculum to include new topics, ultimately our business is to educate, not to train. We don't, especially in the context of the Indian student who's book bound and table bound with very little exposure from the time they're in school to anything. They don't even do part-time jobs. I think there's no alternative to industry realizing that there will be a training period, okay, where you do training, okay. There is no reason why students cannot do some of this in the 3 summers that they have, because that's almost 8 to 9 months in all, from the first year onwards. That is something that, we are not, the Indian ecosystem doesn't really find it easy to employ people at the end of first year and so on the way they do in the US in all kinds of jobs. Industry generally doesn't want people until they are in the 3rd year, which means it gives them only that 6 week or 10 weeks during the industrial training. We need a better partnership with industry so that the students can spend their summers better. Otherwise, in any case, time is required for all of this. After their degree, they have to go through training. We don't see an alternative to that. I mean, there's no way we are going to train people either for the shop floor or, directly, or for, software, the processes involved in software development and so on. We are focused on the fundamentals because really, if you look at it, all of us are doing things which we were not taught. How are we doing it? Because we were taught how to think and how to learn, and that's really what the main job of the IIT is. Yeah, I think
I think our generations have been a little more fortunate compared to current generation, where we had mentors all around. I mean, I remember when we started, we learned not only from our seniors, but we also learned from draftsmen and sometimes even from the technician on the floor, or sometimes even from the stenographer. I mean, there were a lot of mentors around you. Today, people are put into hot water situations straight away, and possibly their bosses also have not been properly mentored. So I think today's need for this kind of finishing school, and I know that education institute won't be able to do, will be able
Yeah,
to
and
do. I
today's
don't-
students haven't even bought vegetables for their mother, so they don't even know how to haggle. I mean, I'm saying this in only half in jest. So there's a lot of gaps, but that's what life is about, right? So we now have to find ways to train people on these things. Yeah.
I would just like to add one, because I have started an initiative where I am taking students from Tier 3 institutions now. I have about 40 students for training them for industry. The byline is making engineering students engineers. The first batch should be getting employed in another month or so. So I would also like to approach the IIT to see how, even from first year end, we found that initially I started with the fourth year, then I failed, they were not ready enough. Now I am taking people who are just finishing first year. I find training them over 18 months is much easier while they are in campus.
Let me also say that on the side, let me now speak from the side of the students, and many of us have been students here before. I think anybody, whether it's industry or whether it's other organizations, who wants to fulfill the gap and provide good complementary education, if I want to call that, to what's taught in the universities. I think we have to do it at a level that is good enough to keep this, to actually challenge the students. That is also, very important. The work has to be such. I find that when there's an offer for internships for students, even with very low, even with almost no payments, if the work is challenging, there are students who are ready to jump at it because they want to learn, they want to put it on their resume and so on. I'm now getting interesting offers for internships even from young civil service IAS officers who want to do something on this, they want to implement something and they need help and they want to just work with interns. That kind of a thing, if it's challenging enough, can also become very important training ground. Yeah.
You mentioned about so many crises affecting India, so I compliment you on that. But along
Not crisis, challenges.
Yeah, challenges, yes, challenges. And
Because we're going to lick all of them. There's no crisis.
So in that connection, I would like to ask you, one of them which catches my attention is energy. And I have been trying to interact at different levels over the last 15, 20 years, also with you, in terms of forming some kind of an energy center. But I have not been getting any kind of a support at any level. And you talked about decentralized power distribution. That is one of the things. But there are so many things one can do in the energy center itself. So I don't see anything happening. In that connection, I would like to say that when we were students, we were told, look, we are really not interested in you undergraduates. We are really interested in PhD and MS. That is where we are going to emphasize. This was in 1960s. But I didn't see anything happening, and we actually came to know more for undergraduates than PhDs. Has it anything happened to change that one? And if you are to, like also you talked about two chairs, one in biotechnology and one in computers. Now these are maybe very interesting technologies and others, but are those going to help us in making these challenges? Energy, infrastructure, transportation, the 3 or 4 other, health, water. Water again is very important. Are we doing anything to face that, and how are we getting our students interested in that one? Whenever we see in the newspaper, what we are hearing is that IIT student got some 1.6 crores of offer, those kind of things. But we don't see as to how IITs are playing an important role in facing these challenges. I would like to know from you, sir. And especially regarding the energy center, that what have you done?
So we have right now, 2 centers here which are focused directly on energy. One is the Center for Combustion Research and Development, which has one major activity is on improved efficiency for thermal energy, the thermal electric power plants. And also there's a allied effort in biofuels in that, okay, which is aimed more at small decentralized power generation. In addition, there is an effort in solar photovoltaic decentralized with DC microgrids and so on. These are the 2. There is no single center, but these 2 efforts are pretty major in the institute. And there is no doubt at all that we have one of our focus areas in the institute is energy, and we just have to decide at the right time whether it helps us actually to, from the point of view of dissemination, introducing coherence in the efforts to actually bring it all under one umbrella or not. Right now they are under two umbrellas, okay? At least two. I don't think there are some smaller efforts in pyrolysis and so on. I don't want to count those, but these major centers, there are at least two of them, which are in that area that you're talking about. I'm surprised that actually at your time in 64, 65, somebody actually articulated so clearly that this is all about MS and PhD, because certainly the message that we got, subliminal message we got when we were students was the exact opposite. I don't know what the experience of some of these people were in the 74, but in 79, 80, that was very clear. This institute is all about undergraduates. In fact, pardon? Yeah, and in fact, when I became a professor and attended the first Senate meeting, I found that all the energy goes in discussing the undergraduate affairs, and finally they'll rush through all the, graduates. This is how it used to be. And so I think, but let's be very clear. I think we don't want, there's no change. It's not either or game. The undergraduate program remains an important part of our focus. We don't want to, dilute in any fashion. We don't want to dilute its brand. We don't want to dilute its the true value. And but there's no doubt at all that our research and our both our graduate research as well as our industry and sponsored funded research programs are now equally important. So that answers your second question. And there are increasingly enough a good number of students and others who come in here to work on projects after getting their degrees elsewhere, who are very focused on those things. The press is always interested in the 1.5 crore salaries. We do actually get quite a bit of coverage for the other work also. If you go and just do a search, you'll find a lot of press coverage about the other work, but certainly it will not get the kind of attention that the huge salaries get, because the whole idea of a 21-year-old walking out with a 1.5 crore salary is just too sexy for the reporters, and you can't blame them for it. Okay, that's what it is. So, but I think to answer your question, finally I would still say that it is a fact that no IIT or no organization in the country has yet done anything in any of these fields which can be claimed to be a game-changing solution for the country, whether it's in transport, whether it's in water, whether it's in energy, whether it's in healthcare, right? There have been no such huge. There have been minor successes or modest successes. There's not been, and that really should be one of our explicit goals, and that is that we must do something in India, and the IITs are certainly strong candidates for making it happen. That makes a huge difference in one or more of these grand challenges. That's certainly something we should do. It's apart from creating companies the way Koreans and others have done. Maybe, none of these are going to be done except through companies. It's not going to be done by government. So, but maybe some of those companies should be things that not just sell a better car or a better, new type of computer, but actually something that addresses these issues. So that is certainly, certainly something we can do, sir. I think that it calls for tremendous amount of creativity and disruptive thinking. Just Me Too following the West is not going to solve any of these problems. We can,
In fact, I'm not at all suggesting that we
follow
that approach.
Yeah.
We have to have our own kind of solutions over here. And how is that we can do it over, and at least you are.
So there are efforts in that direction, and not just in this IIT, but many IITs, but it's growing. I agree with you, not enough energy is being spent on that, yeah. But in an IIT, it's got to be done finally by faculty who are driven by that. So you can't force these things from down. It's not a company that you're running. So we have a certain number of faculty who are keen about this and they work at it. Some others, they just say, no, I'm only interested in doing something which, cutting edge of research. You have to support that also, because that's what they have trained themselves to do. But there are some, and quite a number, not too small. But if you say there aren't enough, I can't disagree with you, because these are pressing challenges the country faces. There's no doubt about it. But there are quite a few people who are focused on addressing these challenges, and they are making, we have, for example, a very practical and working solution for a passive, something that is totally robust in Indian conditions, no power required, for solution for providing arsenic-free water that is now being deployed in Bengal. that came out of here. Now, what we are doing in decentralized power looks very, very attractive. So, there are real solutions that are coming out. Now, how successful they'll be, whether they're really that good, whether they have all that it takes to address the challenge, or whether they'll fall because there are weaknesses, that has to be seen. After all, these are, efforts can always have, the best efforts can always have weaknesses. But there are people who are driven by the same desire that you are articulating. That there may not be enough of them, I can't disagree with you, because till you solve these things, there aren't enough of them. That's a fact.
A number of professors came and talked to us about some of the similar work being done in other areas. One was on power management, another was on solar. There is potential for them to do. In fact, we invited them to come to work with an industry, but there was no response. No, I'm just telling, I don't want to mention people, but as you said, there are professors who would like to just do certain work and there they leave it and they would like somebody else to pick it up. So what we need is, and there are professors who would like to take the work to the industry, to the product, to the community. I mean, I also heard very good comments about you as a director, who are taking a lot of interest in making this IIT and other IITs really do something great for the country in certain areas. So why not those professors who would like to only work and develop technology, like in the solar power or power management, we need to have something different from the incubation center, something different, an agency who will transfer and work with the industry, big industries, who are ready to put funds and take it to the levels in which. And I quite appreciate the initiative you have taken and which you mentioned. I hope let it become all successful.
Yeah, there are many challenges. I'll just briefly comment on what you said. There are many challenges. As you say, there are people who are willing to sweep the floor and hang upside down if required to get something out of their lab into the field. There are others who say, I've done my bit, so now somebody else should do the rest. And there are some people, and when you have to do any of these things, whether you want to impact in water, energy, whatever it is, you have to deal ultimately, you have to deal very quickly actually with government, with policies, with politicians, with bureaucrats. You'll have to deal with policy making. Not everybody's cup of tea, certainly not many academics' cup of tea. So there are challenges here, and even in terms of developing standards. Let me tell you. Let's say you have a very bright solution, something really fantastic, looks very great in healthcare, some new medtech device. India doesn't even have a system for approving medical devices. Today, the only thing that you can use here is what's approved in Europe or US. We don't even have our own certification or FDI equivalent procedures. So where do you start, right? Then if you're really passionate about it, if you want the end solution, you will say, okay, now I'll pick up my bags and I'll start talking to people. I'll go to Delhi, I'll go to Bombay, I'll start creating the ecosystem. I'll work with my like-minded colleagues and help create the ecosystem. But some other faculty might say, man, this is not my job. I'm not cut out for all this. I'm going to stick to my knitting and I'm going to do. You can't blame the other type also. So I think there are many things in the Indian ecosystem that are missing. It all depends on what you see as your calling. If you say I'm ultimately an Indian and I'll do what it takes, I'll sweep the floor if it's required, you will do many things. Some others say I'll do only this much, somebody else should do the rest. To each his own. We have to accept all, as long as people are doing their legitimate work, it's fine. But there are many things that are missing. So that is one of the reasons why these challenges are not easy to address, and why even MNCs, even big companies are going to find it very difficult to provide the right solutions to these challenges. There are many issues, but I'll tell you in the next 10-20 years it's going to happen. These things are going to be licked, and I hope there will be IITians and IIT originated technologies that play a role in this, but they will be licked. Yeah.
Based upon the dialogue that happened in the last few minutes, maybe what I was thinking is, I think about the energy and water and all of that. This has been discussion is going on for so long when you came to US and all of that. So what I was thinking is, now that may be an opportunity, now that we have a new government with the Prime Minister and then trying to take a lot of initiatives in a lot of areas, perhaps some of the directors from the IITs as well as IIMs can take the initiative to, because now that the planning commission is not there, and then now they're trying to figure in a new way of going and then trying to address the national problems. Because right or wrong, I think we still have some kind of a criticism that IITs have not really solved the Indian problems, whatever, they're good or bad. But maybe that may be an opportunity based upon all the comments that have happened in the last few minutes. Maybe I think perhaps have some kind of a group of people and then take the steering committee kind of an approach or whatever, and then address it at the Prime Minister's level.
Sir, it's already happening in some ways, and we are wary of some of these committees because they also tend to fossilize very soon. But the one committee that seems to be going somewhere is the one actually initiated 3 years ago in the previous government on the Ganga cleaning. The IITs got together and they developed a report which this government has also accepted. So they are actually pretty much in the driving seat on how this, if at all it's going to succeed, how this can be achieved. It's led by a very good, distinguished water engineer from Kanpur, but everybody's involved, our faculty are also involved. So that is one example. It involves everything from sewage treatment to pollution abatement to flows, maintaining flows, to how do you use it for a waterway. And there are enormous disagreements on many of these things, even among the scientists. So these are not easy things to figure out what's right and what's wrong. So that's happening. On the energy front also, I think there's a lot of stuff going on. But my own feeling is that on the energy front, there are technologies, breakthrough technologies that are playing a role. I mean, for example, if as and when there is a factor of 2 reduction in the cost of storage technology for these applications, storage technology for mobile and other applications, for battery technology that you need for even cars or even for electronics has different specifications. But storage technology for offline, off-grid applications, they have a different set of desirable specifications. That technology is only a factor of 2 away from changing completely the economics of the business. So you will see a complete revolution if that is clicked in terms of solar. Already in India, solar doesn't require subsidy. It's cheaper to produce power using solar PV than any other way, provided you can consume it immediately. The problem, of course, is that it's available only for a few hours every day. So that's really where the thing is stuck at today. And so given all these constraints with which these different sources of energy are available, today the name of the game is smart ways of mixing and matching matching loads, deferring load, all kinds of load management, multiple power source management, all of this, which all of these requires, complete new technologies all the time, new disruptions. I think it's in the space of entrepreneurship and innovation where the big things are going to come from. And those are not very well driven by committees, let me tell you, even in one IIT, leave alone all the IITs. We have in India today the Energy Research Institute. Okay, so there's no space for another one, almost, the way they have named it, the way TERI has been named. So you've got to be careful. And you can look at what TERI has done and not done. So I think, but the fact is these have to be solved. There's no doubt about it. There's a huge effort. For example, electric vehicles. There's a huge national effort, largely driven by industry. There's a big group, and let me tell you what's happening there. There are a sizable number of people in India who believe that for Indian requirements, at least sizable part of the Indian transportation requirements, all electric vehicles are the way to go. But there's a huge contingent from the rest of the world who wants us to stop at hybrids for the time being. You know why? They're sitting in Delhi and saying, no, hybrids. Okay? Almost to the point where now it's a political battle. It's not a... Okay? So, that's really where it's at. These are not... but there are people. There's a huge committee. There are people in industry. There are people in academia who are on the committee looking at the economics and the technology of all electric buses for certain applications, because we have a different set of requirements here. And, right? So, because I just suddenly saw 2 weeks ago, there's an article coming out from the West about how actually producing power in a coal plant and driving an all-electric vehicle is more polluting than a hybrid. How much do you trust such an article? Okay? Anyway, so the point I'm trying to make is there are all these things, right? Maybe they may be right too, but they may be also driven by forces. So we got to really, these are not easy things to do, but yes, I think there's enough traction in the country, there are enough people worrying about it. There are, because you've got to factor in that argument, India's position of how much hydrocarbon it has, how much it can get access to, what are its vulnerabilities, as opposed to coal, as opposed to how cleanly you can burn coal. There are many issues. It's technical, strategic, political, geopolitical. There are many, many things here. Okay, so things become very complicated. But there are efforts. There are going to be all electric vehicles coming out next year from many companies in India. So there are efforts in India to take a different trajectory, rightly or wrongly. May succeed, may not succeed. So all of these are beginning to happen. So it's not correct to say nothing's happening. On the other hand, a lot more can and should happen.
Changing. Yeah. Hello.
Given your shifting focus towards PhDs and more research, etc., faculty quality is very important. Compensation systems, whether it comes from salaries or research sharing or consultancy, all of that, is that changing structurally to attract the best of faculty?
Okay. So, how do I answer that? If you're in a company and you say this is what's item number one for me, you'll do whatever changes are required to achieve that, right? That's not the way it happens here. But have compensation structures changed a lot? Yes, right? In real terms, compensation for new incoming faculty has, in my estimate, I think tripled from my time. Okay, I sort of know and I sort of compare what I got when I got in, and I'm not going by, I'm just going by what it bought at that time, right, and so on, and what it buy. So things have changed, and certainly compensation for faculty, government has done whatever they can, but compared to industry, especially after a few years, I think the faculty salaries will fall back by a factor of 2 or 3, even compared to those in industry who are focused on R&D. Even in industry, we all know that only if you become responsible for the bottom line, you start getting really fancy salaries. If you're just a researcher, it'll stagnate at some level. So, but even compared to that, the faculty salaries certainly are a factor of 2 to 3 lower once you get to senior levels. But there is scope for consulting. You can make more money by consulting. There is no limit to that. So there are. But if you ask me, can we compete? And if there's an X available who's very good and wants to choose between industry and academia and doesn't care, and all he's looking at is the compensation, we'll lose. Okay. So then you can also ask, how are we doing given all these? Because people have many motivations, right? So if your compensation is good enough in some sense, there are other reasons why people choose to join. So we have been recruiting 30 to 40 faculty members every year for the last 10 years. More than 10 years. And I've been, for example, and it was Professor Anand did it, and I've been doing it every year, like a ritual. I recruit people. We recruit anywhere from 30 to 40. Out of them, half to 60% are PhDs who are coming from all over the world. And the other 40 to 50% are PhDs from India, from Indian universities. But I'll also hasten to tell you that we had a peer review done by an external committee just recently, 5 people from all over the world, and of course, mostly, even they were from abroad, they were mostly Indians, or very often they were distinguished alumni of ours. And one of the remarks that has been put in that committee report is that at least a couple of them who are from abroad were very surprised to find that many of the faculty we've recruited from Indian universities are equally, if not equally good, and sometimes better than the faculty we recruit from elsewhere. So we don't actually, one thing we've done very well in our selection is we just look at their quality, we don't care where they come from. And in the Indian, the Indian system also produces a good number of good people. So I think we are recruiting good faculty. There are other challenges. I think our assessment and incentive system is such that it's easy for somebody to settle into a comfort zone. Not necessarily saying do nothing, but settle into a comfort zone. And the biggest challenge is to prevent people from dropping into those comfort zones. That's one of the challenges. But I don't think the challenges are in the elementary level of what you are alluding to, but they are there in certain other levels. Yeah.
Changing topics, my question is related to the style of education and how you teach in the IITs, right? As you said, reflecting back on my education at IIT, right? We were book-bound, table-bound, and we learned how to think. But if you learn in real life, it's not about just having good ideas, but how to communicate them and how to. So one of the things that I found that we were deficient in is interpersonal skills, and how do we communicate that to other people and be effective at that. So if we can express and teach that aspect in the education system, I think overall the whole population of IIT alumni will be more effective in business, because as you know, business and industry and government believe it runs based on power of persuasion, power of communicating the ideas, and taking forth the aspects that are good for the community. So is there any emphasis on changing the way we teach in IITs for the future?
Okay. So I mentioned, if you remember, that we are expanding, and we're in the process of expanding our notion of support services that we provide our students to beyond, not just, when they're in trouble, but actually to help them acquire many of these things. A person who teaches thermodynamics should ultimately teach thermodynamics the best way possible so that he can convey the concepts of thermodynamics, whether it's by waving his hands or doing some experiment or just by his or her mere presence, whatever it is, right? That magic thing called great teacher. He or she may not end up solving this problem, but we need to provide other teachers, other trainers who do that, okay? The other thing is, you get a lot of this actually, the best way is by being part of. So the expansion into a co-curricular, extracurricular activities and other activities is very important. Okay. Actually, you have hit the nail on the head. The fact that today's kids don't have the time to learn any of this even while they're growing. You mentioned many things. I'll come back to that example. If you bought vegetables regularly for your mother and met her service requirements in terms of achieving the price targets and so on, you'll get many of those things of how to deal with that. Okay. If you have been part of the team that handles the guests at a wedding, instead of contracting it out to X and Y guest services, you learn how to deal with people who are demanding and to whom you have to be nice also. Okay? Many of us have done all of this, and we learned from those things. I realize now that that's where I learned many things. Everything is missing now. People are just going to fit JEE and writing exams. But you have to provide whatever is possible. I don't know whether we'll be successful in providing this. And no US university does this, by the way. In US you learn, or in Western university, you learn all of it still by doing a lot of stuff, by working, by doing part-time jobs and so on and so forth. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah. So we are introducing, I think you're right. The doing things together, doing projects and all of that is very important, right? Yeah. Presenting it. So we are, we are challenged. We recognize that we are moving in that direction. We're challenged by the increase in numbers. So scaling has become a problem there. But you are right. But I'll tell you, those can help to some extent. But there's a huge, especially for the typical IIT student profile coming in. If they're not done, some schools do that very well now. They encourage a lot of this in schools itself. The better schools. But those students stand out when they come here. But the rest have a huge deficiency. It's not easy to plug that after they've come in at the age of 18. Yeah. Controller is here, but
one absolutely last question. Director will be here during lunch. You'll have all the time for interaction.
Going back to the energy issue, energy question. Pardon? No, just a quick comment. It appears that the substantial percentage of power generated is stolen.
Pardon?
That is, a substantial percentage of electricity generated in a grid, like Tamil Nadu or any other state, is simply stolen. Nobody pays for it. Now, the thing is, the money that's lost to the government because of that. See, all the projects we are talking about cost money, right? If that money is made available, so you prevent this theft of electric power, you could use that substantial amount of money to do all sorts of things, right? So I had an idea of coming up with a technical way of helping preventing this theft, and I'm told in not so many words that you can just forget it because the corruption is so deep-rooted that anybody thinking of doing this will probably get mugged, attacked, or something like that, threatened. I mean, I'm not exaggerating, but this is the impression I'm getting. What I'm saying is in this country there seems to be so much corruption, so much money, tax money is lost, and if we talk about a lot of things, what is your thoughts on how IIT graduates step out into this kind of environment? How do you solve the problems? I mean, if the corruption is like a stone wall, stops everything.
Okay, we'll discuss it offline. I'll just but out of deference to the amount of trouble you took in asking the question, I'll just say in one sentence that a lot of things happen in our country because almost everything that you're talking about, whether it's electricity or whether it's education or whether it's healthcare, is all in short supply, and there is a mad scramble, and there are two aspects to the theft of electricity. One is, let me also tell you that don't for a moment assume that nobody in the country knows exactly what's going on. A lot of people know exactly what's going on. The bureaucrats know exactly what's going on. Damodaran can tell you. Everybody has a total finger on the pulse. It's people who need to know what's going on. Some of the theft is, what we call theft, is actually sanctioned by the politicians, and some of it, if you get deep down, you could even argue, well, what else do you do? What else do the poorest, the ordinary people do? Okay, they're just grabbing what they can. And in that melee, there are people who are grabbing for lining their own nests. All of that is going on. There is some of it. This is obviously not the way to run anything. There's no doubt about it. But in that process, I'll give you another example. It's easier to understand than power. Okay, just give me a minute. There's this private education, engineering education in the country, or even school education. You have on the one side fee fixation committees that fix fees for schools and colleges, and the committees fix fees as if there is some kind of a annadatta somewhere showering money to run these institutions, and that they say you can't charge more because people are poor, blah blah blah, and all that. Don't worry about the cost of providing the education, which encourages everybody to take money under the table so that you can run the education. But then on the other hand, you can take money under the table also to build up your empire. So we are in a situation now that if you now move in the direction of freeing it up and say you charge whatever fees you want, you may end up in many situations where, because of the demand supply issue, you may end up in situations where vulnerable people are getting fleeced. On the other hand, what you have is a situation where you can show by writing the books that you can't run any education institution with the amount of fees that they legally allow you to charge. So we are caught in many of these things. Solutions for all of these are not just engineering and technical. Many of these require a very good understanding of human psychology, of mass psychology, and therefore we must respect people who have a pulse on that, which ultimately includes therefore politicians. So we must respect that, because these are not things that admit themselves purely of engineering or scientific solutions. Yeah.
So mine is a non-technical question, since you segued into that. What's the character of IIT moving forward? What's the identity? When we were there and you were there as a student, there was a different kind of pride. We're all engineers. We're looking at something. And 1973, there was a strike, and we came together with all the faculty and made sure that the institute ran. The students cleaned the pots and pans and cooked. Even then, our dormitories were clean. Our entire faculty worked with us to keep the organization running in an efficient, effective manner. And Yesterday, one of my friends said, I brought my daughter to show one of the dorms that they lived. I said, don't do that. You'll be disappointed, you'll be disillusioned. I went to my dorm, and in my dorm were food wrappers and everything fallen on the floor. You know the broken window concept of New York City. If this is the environment in which you're building the character of the students, and I know you talked about monkeys, and I heard that, and I understand that, and it's not our job to build the character in the kids, but it's our job to define the character by which we attract those kind of students. With you having engineering on one side, non-engineering on the other side, and 8,000 students, what's the commonality and character of IIT that I don't even see in your vision and mission statement? Is there something like that?
Yeah, I think it's, so, there's no doubt at all that cleanliness, I already mentioned this, cleanliness, tidiness, these are all core to anything that you do, whether it's an IIT or not. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And we can get into the details about what the challenges are and how we are trying to address it. But the character is very clear. We want to be, we are aiming to be and working towards being an excellent institution for undergraduate, postgraduate, research and education in engineering and science. It's a little bit in the humanities because you don't have a big department, and management, and as well as in the process, because the country that looks to the IITs for many things, also for doing impact, having a reasonable impact in society, in industry. These are not roles that are explicitly specified in many universities across the world, but we have to do that in the Indian context. Our faculty are almost called for everything by the government for assistance, whether it's regarding the buildings that collapse, or whether the bridges that something requires help, or roads that are cracking up earlier than they should, or the power system, whatever it is. So we do that. We also, some of us are very keen to address these grand challenges. So all of this is part of our vision. The character is very clear. We want to be the best, and we want to make a huge impact. We want to retain our, we want to be accepted and widely accepted as being an institution with a very high level of integrity and authenticity. That's really what it is. And what you said is absolutely right. We have to be, cleanliness is the first step. I mentioned this already, and I think it's absolutely right. We have to get it right. Whatever the problems are, monkeys and no monkeys and all of that. There are issues, but there are issues with all of us. There are issues with the way we are able to maintain. There are issues with the way the kids of today maintain themselves, and there are issues with the peculiar environment we are in. But these are not this is not rocket science. We can solve all of this. We should be solving all of this. Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for a very interesting talk. And can we have a round of applause for Professor Bhaskar for patiently answering all the hard questions? The 64-65 Golden Jubilee batch would now like to felicitate our director.
The first IIT alumnus to occupy the director's post. So that way, he deserves a special...
May I now call upon Mr. Srini Nageshwar from the Golden Reunion batch to say a few words and hand over a treasure to our director.
Today we won't take too long here, but today has been a very momentous and emotional day for many of us. All of us have come together here, and many of us are seeing each other after 50 years after we kind of left our hostel and so on. So it's been wonderful to get to know each other and so on. Over the last hour, the director has been taking us to the future and so on. one of the things, as I was looking yesterday, I thought, being in Silicon Valley, one of the things I talk about is that IIT Madras is the most successful startup that we of the first batch have been involved in. And to take us back to our roots, I found 2 documents that I'd like to present to the director and also have it be in the heritage exhibition. I have a document out of the very first convocation on the 11th of July 1964. It has pictures of Dr. Radhakrishnan, all the faculty members, the names of all of the 64 people of the 1964 batch that graduated by batch. And it also is a quick overview of IIT Madras in 1964 by department and all that. In addition to that, I also have the annual magazine that was issued in 1964. It has pictures and backgrounds and so on of every one of the 1964 batch that graduated that year. And so I think these 2 will be phenomenal mementos to have in the Heritage Center. And I'd like to hand these over to Director. And then in addition, I also found 2 issues of Pradeep, which are the 5th and the 7th annual magazine by the Alumni Association. These are not as valuable as those 2, but I may be also very useful.
This first book contains some secrets. It contains the ranks of everybody.
By the way, hopefully everyone can look at this at the Heritage Center. All of our pictures are in there in the annual magazine. We'll take it.
Thank you, Mr. Srini, for those timeless treasures. May I now call upon Mr. Ashok Santanam of the 74 batch, who would now like to address his batchmates.
I wanted to say something after they left, but it can wait. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. So, by the way, I just wanted to say that in 1999 when we were here for the 25th, and we had some sessions with the faculty. For those of you who were here, you might recall. Okay. So when we were here in 99, those of you who were here, you might remember there was some faculty presentations and so on and so forth. So I think in comparison to that, what we heard today, I felt much more, it was much more refreshing. And it's great actually to see Professor Bhaskar, an IIT Madras alumnus in this job. I hope all of you got a flavor for the challenge that he and his team face. It's a very, very complex set of things, and I know we all tend to, those of us who aren't in touch with the campus every day and so on and so forth, we say, well, why can't IIT be better in the rankings? Why can't we do more research? Why can't we have more groundbreaking stuff happening and so on and so forth? But I hope you all got a sense for what's involved here. So, none of this happens without money, right? And you heard both Nag as well as Bhaskar talk about the $100 million endowment. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is to tell you a little bit about what's been happening on that front over the last couple of years, some work that I've been involved in. So if you can just move that slide forward. So we know about all this, right? And I just wanted to let you know that, the first donations to IIT Madras began, I think, about 10, 15 years ago, something like that. And over the last few years, it's been averaging a couple of $1 million US dollars a year. This year, the Office of Alumni Affairs has done a fantastic job, and they've raised $4 million or so, roughly. And so that's where things stand as of today. And those of you who've been involved in any kind of university fundraising in the US or elsewhere, you know that even 100 million doesn't even scratch the surface, okay? I mean, the kinds of endowments that US universities are dealing with, are orders of magnitude higher than that. Now, granted that in India, perhaps, because of differences in wage scales and so on and so forth, maybe it's a 2-to-1 factor or whatever, but still 100 million is a target that's been set not only to take into account IIT Madras's needs over the next few years, but also to say, let's put a stake in the ground and put a starting point, right? And so, move ahead, please. Yeah, so the strategic plan was a place to start. And some of us alumni who were here in Chennai and some in the US, primarily around Silicon Valley, we basically said, look, the Office of Alumni Affairs doesn't have the capability to get involved in any kind of fundraising in any serious way. And if you're going to do this, you have to do this right, and you have to do it the way US universities do it. And so a group of us in the States sort of volunteered to start working on this to get a US development office established, okay? And so the idea was to model this along the same lines as US universities have. And so where we are with that today is we've established the IIT Madras Foundation, right? That was set up about a month ago. And so we have to, because it's a foundation, it's independent of IIT Madras, but because it uses IIT Madras in the name, we had to get the Board of Governors to approve it. We do have some reporting requirements back to IIT Madras to make so that they can be satisfied that we're not in any way misusing the IIT Madras name. And we have alumni volunteers as the initial office bearers. There's a very, very passionate guy from 1968, Seshan Ram Mohan. He's just been, his blood is it's only IIT Madras blood in his veins, okay? And he's going to be this first president. We've roped in a couple of other volunteers as treasurer and secretary. I'm one of the initial board members, along with a couple of other guys also based in Silicon Valley. And one of us has donated office space as well to the foundation. And we're in the process of getting approval, which should happen, I think, by next month, for tax deductibility, right? So we get the IRS approval as a charitable foundation and so forth, so that any donations that are made by any US-based alumni or non-alumni will be tax deductible, okay? We also went on the road, Seshan and I myself went on the road and made the first pitch for money, and we got a $2 million pledge. The donor is Prem Vatsa, who was, if you remember, in IIT with us, senior to us by 2 or 3 years. He's based in Toronto, and he's been kind enough to sort of make this anchor pledge of a couple of $1 million so that we can get started, right? So while we've been doing this, there's been a parallel effort in India. Prakash Damodar, I think, has been involved in that. And so they're sort of revamping that to model themselves after what we're doing in the States. And so the idea is that the Indian Development Office will focus on fundraising in India, and the US Development Office will focus on fundraising outside India, okay? So those of you who don't live either in India or in the US, don't think you're off the hook. We are coming after you for money, okay? And the Indian entity will report to the IIT Madras Alumnus Charitable Trust, which is chaired by Chris Gopalakrishnan, formerly of Infosys. So our goal in the US is we want to support the 2020 strategic plan, right, by building an endowment for the long term, right? The goal is to get to 100 million. And by the way, this is 100 million endowment value, right? This is not 100 million that is all going to go to IIT Madras for projects. And the understanding we have with the administration is that the Indian fundraising will focus on financing ongoing projects, and the US entity's fundraising will focus on building up the value of the endowment, okay? And so net of expenses, this is how we expect this thing to progress. We believe it's doable, right? And 2015 target of 5.5, we've already got 2. So, so we hope that we can get to year 1. And so if you move to the next slide, please, right? So the plan here is that we launch the US Development Office in February, and we will want to have some paid staff as well, aside from these volunteers. So it'll be volunteer driven, but we have to have some paid staff. And one of the things I forgot to mention is, while we were doing the planning for all of this, we retained the services of a consultant by the name of Bob Woods, who had been instrumental in helping Stanford with their centenary fundraising program. So and he does this now. He's a consultant to a number of different charities and universities and so on and so forth. So this is a guy who knows what he's doing, and he sort of advised us in terms of how to get this thing set up. And so there are some infrastructural expenses that we will have. There's a software, by the way. You learn these things as you go along. There's a software called Wealth Engine, and Wealth Engine has a database that you basically put people's names in, and we did a test, by the way, of the names of some IIT Madras alumni, and it's beautiful. It actually comes back and says how much are their net assets, how much is their donor capacity. Oh, it's great stuff, okay? So anybody that has any meaningful net worth, we have your number, okay? But all that said, even though we will have some necessary expenses, our goal is to keep the expenses at a minimum level, because we really want to take the most of what we can raise and use it towards building up the endowment value. So we will launch a campaign, and we'll coordinate that campaign with the Indian Development Office and with IIT Madras. And during 2015, we're going to start soliciting key donors, okay? So for 2015, right, where do we get the money? These reunions are an opportunity, okay? So 1989, 1974, I don't, those guys. By the way, the comment I wanted to make when unfortunately they were still in the room, is for those of you who might have been feeling a little impatient with some of those questions, that's you in 10 years. So these are the reunions, and so we're hoping that the reunion classes will provide some. There's also donors who have a history of giving, Prem Vatsa being an example of that, Chris Gopalakrishnan being an example of that, who have a history of giving to IIT Madras that we'll approach. There are donors, some in this room, with propensity and capacity to give, hopefully multiple times. And then, of course, there are corporations and foundations with IIT Madras alumni. So given that we started off with this $2 million, we said, okay, 5.5 is what the original goal was, but we're going to set a stretch goal of 10 million for 2015, and we'll see how far along we go. And so the targets, 1989, just FYI, they've set a target of $1 million, okay? And this was done, they didn't even know about the US Development Office when they set this target, so I don't know how they came up with the number. We had some discussion, I had some discussion with some of the organizers of our reunion, and we felt that $1 million may be a little bit too ambitious for us, so we said 500. But I'm happy to also let you know that we have so far 5 people who've pledged a total of 135K. So maybe the 500 is not ambitious enough, okay? So, but what I'd like to appeal to all of you is to set that we'd like to get a target participation rate. So it's not just the money, right? It's also how many people give. And I'd like to see the 74 class, at least a 50% participation rate. And, by the way, I was involved in some fundraising after our last reunion. I mean, that was, I swore I would never do it again, and somehow I'm doing it again. I know that once you get out of here, and the people who don't come to the reunion, it's awfully difficult to get money out of those people, right? It's difficult to reach them. Many of them, you don't have them in the database, and so on and so forth. So if we want a 50% participation rate for the whole class, then that means we need a higher participation rate for those of you who are here. Yeah, I don't control that, Prabhu. Yeah. That was, just go back to that. The last one, yeah. There we go. Okay, so today we have 5 people. There are what, 60 or 60, 70 people here in the room today, 5 of whom have contributed. And the median contribution is 15K for those 5. And we have, Hari has prepared a pledge form, which we will print out and hand out to you probably at dinner tonight, okay? And by the way, anything that any amount is welcome, okay? The fact that the median is 15K, we're not suggesting that 15K is some, so you know, I mean, obviously the median means there's half the people are below, half are above. So any amount is welcome. What I'd like you all to think about is, you know, where you are today in your life, right? And how you've sort of gotten here, and the role that IIT, whether it's the campus or whether it's the academics or whether it's your classmates or whether it's the joint entrance exam, there was some aspect of IIT that helped you get to where you are, okay? And most of us, you know, our responsibilities to our kids are over. And, you know, many of us are retired. Many of us are close to or contemplating retirement. Financial wherewithal is somewhat better today than it was 15 years ago. And so I'd like you to think about what you can do. And there are many ways to do this. You can do it as a one-time pledge. Or you can say, look, I'll pledge something over an annual amount over the next 3 years, or an annual amount over the next 5 years. Whatever you're comfortable with, think about that. When we get to the dinner, Hari will hand out these pledge forms, okay? It has nice little check boxes. He's shaking his head, but there's a business center in the hotel, Hari, okay? So there's nice little check boxes that say how you would want to do it. Those of you who are in India, there are rupee amounts you can put in, there are dollar amounts you can put in, etc. And what I would really like is for you all to just say what you can do, right? And then that makes the job of then following up with you so much easier once you've said that you're able to pledge something. Then we'll follow up with you and we'll collect, okay? And yes, Prabhu. Yes, excellent. Yeah. No, that's an excellent question. And believe me, when we were working on the plans for the foundation, right, and we've had these accountability discussions with the administration as well as among ourselves, you know, nobody felt, and same question came from Prem, by the way, when we went to Prem and asked him for money. So you know, nobody likes the idea of just writing checks to, you know, in the past, as you all know, I mean, we've received solicitations for, oh, we need a water tank for Saraswati Hostel and so on and so forth. And, you know, that doesn't excite anybody, right? So we said, okay, first of all, the development office in the US and the one in India are, as I said, independent of IIT, right? They have board members who are alumni, who are serving as volunteers. Those board members will decide what to do with the money, right? IIT Madras is supposed to make requests based on whatever project needs that they have. In the US, by the way, the statutory requirement in order to maintain the tax deductibility is 5% of the net asset value must be given out every year, okay? So the minimum that the US Development Office will give out to IIT Madras is 5% of whatever amount the endowment value is that year. But which projects that 5% goes to, you know, etc. There will be the board of the development office will basically be looking at those kinds of things and saying which are the worthy projects that we would want to give it to. Now, of course, if there's a donor that Prem, for example, right, who's willing to write a big check and says, I want my money to go to such and such particular project, they absolutely have that right? And then the board will honor their wishes. We will expect some reporting back from IIT Madras in terms. No. So, but we're not going to prevent people. If somebody says, look, endowment is all fine, but I want to give money in order to build a library, okay? And I want my name on the library, and here's $5 million. What are we going to do? Say, no, we're only raising money for the corpus? No, we'll take the money, right? But there will be a reporting requirement back, is the key point, that IIT Madras will say, yeah, here we took this money, here's what we've done, here's what we've accomplished. We will expect that, right? Just as much as we have a reporting requirement to IIT to satisfy them that we're not misusing the name, there is also a reciprocal reporting requirement from IIT in terms of use of funds and so on and so forth, right? So that's the governance. So there is enough independence from IIT Madras that it's not just going to go into a black hole, right? And I hope you all have a sense that with the caliber of administration that we have today compared to what we've seen in the past, as wide as the challenges are, my sense, and I hope most of you agree, my sense is that, look, I've been in Silicon Valley for a long time, and I've raised lots of money for private ventures, and I've done my share of investing in some of these. And one of the key things that you look at when you make these investment choices, aside from what's it going to be used for, is you look and say, do you have faith in the team to execute, right? And my sense is that, at least speaking for myself, my faith in that is a lot higher now than it ever was in the past. And I hope you share that. And for those who, I've spoken to many of you offline at various times, and there's been some skepticism about, can we achieve the top 50 ranking, and can we do this and can we do that? There's so much to be done and so forth. And talk to the academicians among us, right? Talk to Johnny, talk to Ravi, talk to Sudarshan, people like this, and see, just how complex is the job, and also, how doable the job is, right? At NTU, and Ravi was telling me last night, right? The progress that NTU has made over the last, 10, 15 years or whatever is just absolutely remarkable. USC before that, by the way, where Ravi was a professor. So it's, you have to start somewhere. You want to make sure, to Prabhu's point, that the money is not going to go to waste. And I think we've done the basics to set that up. And, we have to sort of fine-tune it and manage it as we go along.
I certainly want to thank Ashok for presenting the case so well and so forcefully. The question about accountability, as our previous director, Professor Anant, used to say, there is accountability and then there is trust. To me, trust is a much more important component. And in fact, for the past, I would say at least 5 to 6 years while I have been doing this, and even during the time of my predecessor, Professor K.N. Satyanarayana, what we have really focused on, I think, is building a trust between the alumni and the institute. And I think we have been largely successful in that. And I base this on the fact that the last 4 silver reunions, that is starting from the 85, 86, 87, 88, batches have all directed their silver union contributions to an unrestricted corpus at the institute. So they have demonstrated the trust that I believe we have developed over the years, that even if they give to a completely unrestricted corpus, that we would know what to do with it. We would do it the right way, that we would make sure that the annual returns are spent in the most effective and most meaningful manner for the institute. And, I think that I addressed the 1989 batch last night. I went to the reunion dinner at the resort and made a presentation about, where they could direct their funding. And by the way, when I talk about silver reunion funding, these are large amounts. They range anywhere from close to 4 crores to 2 crores, or roughly. So we're not too far away from the 500K target that we are setting for the 74 batch. And I presented to them basically 3 options, because you really cannot just force them to give to one option. The 3 options I presented to them, the number 1 priority was the development office. The number 2 was the unrestricted corpus, which previous batches have been doing. And number 3 was specific projects. We certainly want to leave it to the donor to finally decide how their money is directed and gets utilized. But the point I'm trying to make is the fact that so many of these large reunions have chosen to give their contribution in an unrestricted manner to an institute corpus, to me says we are heading in the right direction. Accountability to me is easy to accomplish. We can have reporting mechanisms, we can have deployment mechanisms, we can keep everyone informed about what's being done with their money. All of that to me is the easy part. The difficult part is really building that trust. And I hope that is something that we have accomplished in the last few years that will hopefully give you confidence that if you do support the development office and the development office starts raising, I don't know, $50 million a year, $100 million a year, every dollar will get utilized in the best way possible. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ashok. Thank you, Professor Nagarajan. With that, we come to the end of today's proceedings.